Imagine standing on a beach 65,000 years ago. Behind you lies everything you've ever known: your family, your home, the forests where you've hunted since childhood. In front of you is something far more terrifying: an endless ocean. No compass, no maps, no metal ships, not even a written language. Just water stretching beyond the horizon. Today, crossing an ocean takes hours in an airplane or days aboard a massive ship. But tens of thousands of years ago, humans somehow managed to do the impossible. They crossed open seas using nothing more than the technology they could build with stone tools, wood, and determination. The question is, how? And perhaps even more importantly, why would they risk everything to sail into the unknown? For most of human history, scientists believed our ancestors simply walked across continents. During the Ice Age, sea levels were much lower than they are today. Vast amounts of Earth's water were trapped inside enormous glaciers, exposing land bridges that connected regions now separated by water. Humans walked from Africa into the Middle East, from Asia into Europe. Much later, they crossed the Bering Land Bridge into North America. It seemed simple enough. But then archaeologists uncovered evidence that completely changed the story. Modern humans had already reached Australia around 65,000 years ago. There was only one problem: Australia was never connected to mainland Asia. Even when sea levels were at their lowest, deep stretches of ocean still separated the two landmasses. At the narrowest crossing, early humans still had to travel dozens of kilometers over open water. That meant one astonishing thing: the first great ocean voyage happened tens of thousands of years before civilization even existed. Imagine what that journey looked like. No ports, no harbors, no experienced sailors waiting to teach the next generation. Someone had to become humanity's very first captain. No one knows exactly what their boats looked like because wood rarely survives for tens of thousands of years. But archaeologists have developed several theories. Perhaps they tied together thick bamboo stalks to build floating rafts. Maybe they lashed large logs together with vines. Some researchers believe they used bundles of reeds, while others think simple dugout canoes may have appeared later. Whatever they built, it had one purpose: stay afloat long enough to reach land they couldn't even be sure existed. Imagine gathering enough courage to push that fragile raft into waves larger than anything you'd ever faced. Every creak of the wood, every splash of water, every dark shadow beneath the surface. The journey wasn't just dangerous, it was a leap of faith. But building a boat was only half the challenge. Finding your way across the sea was something else entirely. Without GPS, maps, or compasses, how could ancient humans navigate? Nature itself became their guide. Birds often fly toward land before sunset. Clouds tend to gather over islands because forests release moisture into the air. Floating branches, leaves, and even the smell carried by the wind could hint that land was nearby. Ocean currents followed predictable paths. The stars rose and set in familiar patterns every night. Generations of careful observation may have transformed ordinary hunters into remarkable navigators. They didn't need modern technology. They needed experience. And they needed courage. Some scientists once suggested these journeys happened by accident. Perhaps storms swept people out to sea on drifting rafts. Maybe they survived by pure luck. But this explanation has a major problem. Australia wasn't settled by just a handful of stranded survivors. Thousands of people eventually lived there. That means the crossings had to happen repeatedly. Entire groups, including children, must have crossed the sea. Food, tools, and knowledge traveled with them. These weren't accidents, they were organized expeditions. Humanity had already learned something extraordinary: how to travel beyond the horizon. Experimental archaeologists have even tested this idea. Using only materials that would have been available during prehistoric times, researchers built simple wooden and bamboo rafts. To many people's surprise, they worked. These vessels successfully crossed stretches of ocean similar to those ancient humans would have faced. The experiments didn't prove exactly how the first voyages happened, but they proved something just as important: they were possible. Our ancestors were far more skilled engineers than we once imagined. Reaching Australia changed everything. Separated from the rest of the world for tens of thousands of years, the people who settled there developed unique cultures unlike any other on Earth. They adapted to unfamiliar landscapes, encountered giant animals that no longer exist, and built one of the world's oldest continuous cultural traditions. All because someone decided to sail into the unknown. And Australia wasn't the end of the story. Thousands of years later, humans crossed even greater distances. They settled remote islands across the Pacific Ocean. They reached Madagascar. Eventually, nearly every inhabitable corner of the planet became home. Each voyage built upon the knowledge passed down by those first fearless explorers. Without them, human history would have unfolded very differently. Today, satellites can guide ships across oceans with pinpoint accuracy. We can see coastlines from space. Weather forecasts warn us of storms days in advance. Yet 65,000 years ago, a small group of humans looked out over an endless sea and chose to go anyway. They had no guarantee they would survive. No certainty that land waited beyond the horizon. Only curiosity, hope, and the courage to take one impossible step beyond the edge of the known world. That single decision transformed our species from wanderers of the land into explorers of the earth. And every journey that followed, from the age of sail to the first steps on the moon, can trace its origins back to those first brave humans who dared to cross an ocean. The greatest voyage in history may have begun on nothing more than a simple wooden raft.